Welcome to episode 22 of Matthew-linity. This time it's the final verses of Matthew chapter 3. So I'll just read those out. As soon as he was baptized, Jesus came out of the water, and behold, the heavens were opened, and he saw God's Spirit descending like a dove, coming to him. And behold, a voice from the heavens saying, "This is my Son, the Beloved, in whom I am well pleased." I would like to focus on what "in whom I am well pleased" is a reference to, because we could say, well, Jesus hasn't done anything yet. This is pre-ministry. Jesus hasn't begun his ministry, so God is already pleased without Jesus having to do anything. We could read it that way, and we could perhaps get some really good theology out of that interpretation. However, I don't think that's what it's referring to. I think it's referring to what has just happened in the previous sentences, which we looked at a little bit last time, where Jesus has come to John the Baptist out into the wilderness along with other people to be baptized, but John didn't think that was a good idea for Jesus. He thought that Jesus should be the greater leader, taking charge. John could just be one of the baptizees, and Jesus could be the baptizer. And Jesus says, "No, this is right. This is right. Never mind that. This is the right thing to do for now." And so I think this is what it's referring to, is what Jesus has just done. Jesus has decided to go out to the wilderness, and he's arrived, and then he's had to push through John's resistance. John is offering an alternative. Jesus is pushing through that resistance, standing firm in his resolve that no, this is right. This is the right thing to do. And then he has been baptized. So John relented. John allowed it. Which means John baptized him. It's interesting that in the next two sentences, which is what I'm looking at today, the baptism is over, and this is talking about after the baptism. So as soon as Jesus was baptized, he came out of the river, suddenly the heavens are open, he sees God's Spirit descending to him like a dove. There's a voice from heaven saying, "This is my beloved Son in whom I approve." And so this approval is talking about what has just happened. I think it's talking about the things that have just transpired in the story so far. So we might think, well, so far Jesus hasn't done much, but what he has done is approved by God. God loves what Jesus has done so far, even though he hasn't really done much yet. But notice that this is also leading into the next section. So if we didn't have a chapter break, so if we didn't have chapter 4 starting in the very next sentence, we didn't have chapter numbers or verse numbers, we would notice how smoothly this passage goes straight into the next passage about the Spirit leading him into the wilderness. So he's already in the wilderness, and he's just seen the Spirit coming to him, and now the Spirit's taking him further into the wilderness to be tested. So this is quite a smooth transition from chapter 3 to chapter 4, because we've got the same kind of location, we've got the Spirit, and we've got Jesus already having pushed through a temptation. So John was not deliberately trying to put Jesus to the test by saying, no, you should be the baptizer, I should be baptized by you, why are you coming to me for baptism? Like, that wasn't a deliberate test. That John the Baptist is not deliberately trying to test him. John seems sincere in celebrating this great leader that he sees before him. And so there's not really a deliberate temptation, but it still is nevertheless some kind of a temptation that Jesus has pushed through. So the transition into the next three tests, or temptations as we usually call them, in chapter 4, it's quite a smooth transition. It's not like a sudden new chapter. And notice the combination between the two things that God is pleased with. Jesus being humble enough to want to join in with the baptisms, to be baptized by John in the river, and also being able to push through this little temptation to start his own ministry prematurely. Jesus could just start his ministry now and take over, but no, he's this really interesting combination between being humble and submitting to John's ministry, but at the same time standing firm with the resolve to remain on track for what he thinks is the right thing to do. For Jesus to believe in his own ministry enough not to hurry it forward prematurely, but just to be patient, not wanting to become greater than John the Baptist and just start prematurely, but instead being patient and not needing to interfere, believing that it's not yet time. So I find this combination really interesting. Jesus' humility in submitting to John's ministry, and then also being firm in knowing, I suppose these things go together, because Jesus can be humble because he believes so strongly in his own ministry that it will happen. He doesn't have to upstage John the Baptist. He doesn't have to make it happen. He doesn't have to force it to happen. He has the patience because he has the belief in himself. And that's all for this episode. Thank you for listening. Thank you.